Hey everybody, welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast. Today we are focusing on one of the biggest problems we are finding with firefighters' health all over the world. And today on the podcast, I'm speaking to a business owner who has found a solution, gone deep into the data, and has finally come up with something that not only does the job, but looks great while it's doing it. My guest today, Tara Cornett, is a US Navy veteran, fire sister, and founder, CEO of Flame. Flame was created when she realized that firefighters didn't have anything that was specifically designed to remove these dangerous and carcinogenic toxins from their hair and scalp after a fire incident. Once she realized this, she knew exactly what she needed to do, and thus began the journey of what is now Flame. The really unique thing about today's episode is this is a product that can make a tangible, proven difference in firefighter safety and their personal longevity in terms of their health and well-being long after they leave the incident ground. This takes personal safety and personal accountability from the incident ground all the way to the home. But before we jump in there with today's guest, let's acknowledge our partners of the podcast, our wider family. First up, we have our partners of the podcast, PBI Performance Products. PBI products are protection without compromise. Now, PBI fabrics have been renowned for their unique combination of flame resistance, durability, and comfort. I have worn PBI products since starting my career 13 years now, and they are the very first choice in protection for pretty much every extreme condition, from NASA astronauts to emergency responders, the military, Formula One. So it goes without saying we are a massive fan of PBI, and it's great to have them as a fan and a sponsor of the podcast. If you want to hear more about it, go over to pbiproducts.com or just check in the notes below. You will find a link to PBI. A big thanks once again to our long-term sponsor, William Wood Watches, who bring us, of course, our Chivalrous Collection, Bronze Edition, Valiant Collection, and coming to 2021 from the 1st of March is their new Triumph Collection. William Wood Watches is a UK-based watch manufacturer where upcycling is taken to a whole new level. William Wood are all about history on your wrist and feeling the beat of the fire service with you every step of the way. William Wood Watches has the vision to be the leading sustainable watch brand that upcycles rescue service materials for a new life, once forgotten, now reborn. Johnny always says the best part of the journey for him was seeing the watches on the wrists of people who appreciate the story, the history, the values. If you want to become part of the William Wood Watches family, head over to williamwoodwatches.com, where Johnny and the team have some beautiful, beautiful pieces to share with us. So get over, have a look, get yourself registered, and check out some of the incredible stuff at williamwoodwatches.com. Now, are you the sort of person that wants to be in there, in the know first thing? Then if you want to hear about enhanced limited time offers and exclusive giveaways for emergency services workers, NHS, social care, armed forces members, then be sure to like and follow the Blue Light Card on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, with weekly announcements and competitions with brands such as Prezzo, Starbucks, P&O Cruises, that's right, P&O Cruises. Make sure you are in with a chance of winning today. Head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and search for Blue Light Card. Give them a follow, give them a like. You should be there anyway. Every day you fail to do this, you are missing out on some of the great savings from Blue Light Card, specifically put together as that massive thank you to all of our emergency services operators. I really enjoy this side of the podcast, being able to find something that I feel is going to make a tangible difference to frontline operators, giving it that exposure, delving a little bit deeper. And Tara actually turned out to be a wonderful person as well, which is always nice. She shares some great outlooks on life, society, the big why behind why we've done it, and how this is important to her personally, and how I feel it's going to be really important to all of us. So thanks for coming by, thanks for dropping in once again. I hope you enjoy this one. I hope you go over and take a look at Flame Natural DECON. I hope it benefits you and your family. So without further ado, once again, let's buckle up for safety, kids, and I will see you on the other side. Tara, hello.
Good morning, how are you? Or good afternoon.
It is good afternoon here. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for getting up early. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. No problem. I appreciate you having me on. I truly.
No, it's an honor. I mean, we've been doing so much work in and around DECON in the UK, and I know globally it's a really big subject, and I don't want to ruin our talk by getting too much into it, but I saw what you guys did, and I saw how the company started. There's just so much authenticity there. I just would love to get you on and be able to share and uplift. So, today we're talking about the importance of post-scene decontamination. Now, if you've selected some of the hottest topics in the fire service, cancer prevention would be near the top of that list. The data and statistics are both scary and undeniable. Cancer is spreading throughout the fire service, and memberships have it at an alarming rate. Firefighter who gets contaminated when they're wearing the appropriate PPE will still have been exposed to something. So, for example, BA wearers with asbestos and many of the other carcinogens that we face, that exposure time and how we go about things afterwards is super, super crucial. So carcinogens are unavoidable for us, and firefighters are 2.2 times more likely, apparently, to get cancer than any other member of the general public. Now, my guest today, Tara Cornett, is a US Navy veteran, fire sister, founder of CEO of Flame, and she's also a pretty awesome person. Cara, welcome to the Firefighters Podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Pete. I'm doing great. How are you?
I am wonderful. I always feel relieved when I can get through the intro bit without blundering it. So maybe we managed it today. I'm not sure.
It's going to be smooth sailing from here then.
That's the only partially scripted part of the entire thing, I promise you. So Flame, I came across Flame through some of the decontamination work we've been trying to look at in the UK, trying to learn, trying to develop, seeing how many other things are out there. And we try and convince services or the powers that be to take the right actions and stuff like that. But sometimes it takes somebody such as yourself and what you've created to go, you know what? I know what I feel the right thing is to be done. I don't see anybody else doing it, so I'm going to step up, take some ownership, take some accountability, and do it. Cara, how did Flame start, and where did it come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of years ago, it's been probably 2.5 years now, my mom and I started a company because she was looking to retire. So being that she's a fire mom and so passionate about being a fire mom, constantly bugging my brother for that fire mom sticker on the back of the car.
You don't see that in many other services, do you? People get so passionate, and rightly so. It's a real USP that people choose to do, whether it's Navy, police, military, fire service. It's a strange pride that we have, but I love that we have that in that wider family.
Totally, me too. It's awesome. So she and I decided to start this small business, firemom.com, and it launched as this year in gift company. So year in gifts for firefighters and their families, which we had and have all kinds of cool things surrounding that. But about 6 months into that, I was working super hard to put it all out there on social media every day, and just get the word out. And I've always been one of those people that I just have to work for the greater good. It's just in my heart. I have to do that. So I didn't feel like I was really making an impact. I didn't feel like I was helping anybody in their lives. I get that this, just like you were saying, we love having that pride. That makes people happy, which is great. But I felt like I wanted to have more of an impact through my career.
Because the gifts and stuff that evolve around the fire service culture, there's loads of them out there. There's some wonderful t-shirts that sort of embody and sort of demonstrate the attitudes and behaviors, and also the love and sympathy that people have in and around living with a firefighter, whether that's a man, a woman, their mum, their sister, their brother, their dad, anything like that. But I hear what you're saying. You wanted to, because the work you do now, yes, it adds joy and fulfillment to people's life, but it sincerely can save people. It can save the people that are out there saving us at the end of the day. For
sure. And you're right that I don't want to put anybody down who's doing a t-shirt company or something like that, because certainly it helps morale and mental health. But a good friend of mine, when I was doing that, and at that point of I was face down in my bed in tears, sobbing in tears. It was bad. I was that frustrated with where I was at and not feeling like I was making the impact that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And this friend of mine told me, you need to change your mission. You need to change your mission to firefighter wellness, because that's what's in your heart. You enjoy helping people, and this will allow you to help people.
Yeah. Because like you say, there's many levels of helping people, isn't there? Like you say, it can be from a psychological, from a physical, from a social, from a financial perspective. There's so many ways to give somebody that full level of health and wellness. And like you say, the mission itself can change. The strategy and where it comes from can still be the same. You want to be able to support people out there on the front line and really make a difference. Everybody can make a difference in a different way, and you really sort of no better or worse, but you've changed levels into something that must have been a hell of a challenge when you first came up with the idea.
Totally, because I had already been 6 months into this other business.
Yeah.
So even to step back and think about changing the mission at that point, that was even a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
So I took a couple of days, thought about it, came back, and I was like, "You're right. Let me figure this out." And started looking at the products that we carried at the time that centered around firefighter mental and physical wellness, and to figure out what we had and what we needed to really accommodate that mission.
Yeah.
And as I was doing that, I realized that there was nothing out there for firefighters to get the toxins out of their hair and off of their scalp. And that's a big deal. I mean, you can't just clean the rest of your body and leave it there. That's not good.
Well, I say the skin is, I mean, from my very limited information, skin's like one of the biggest organs in the body. People don't think of it in that way. But it goes through so much, and though whilst it's not a inherently visual thing, sometimes it's not like a fire, it's not like a knife, it doesn't seem as much of a hazard to us. It's one of those, without seeming too tongue-in-cheek, it's like a slow burn. It's something that affects you so long-term. The impact of it is too light to be felt at the time until the results of it are too heavy to be changed. When people result and get some sort of long-term illness like cancer, I mean, there are people that survive it, but there's almost no turning back at that point.
Yeah, that's right. And so, little known fact about me: when I was 19, I became an esthetician in California. So somebody who knows all about the skin and takes care of the skin and does all of that.
Yeah.
So I still hold my esthetician license in the state of California. Still have an active one, even though that's not the field that I work in.
Yeah.
So I know a bit about dermal absorption.
Don't look after my skin anywhere near enough. When we're around, even outside of the fire service, around grease and in the gym and everything like that, I know I don't treat my skin well enough. And ladies seem to be so much further ahead of the game than us men, dragging our knuckles around, not really looking after our skin and our hair. It's no surprise we end up losing our hair and getting tough, horrible skin. I mean, sometimes I feel for my wife when I hold her hand and I'm like, my hands are covered in calluses and stuff like that. I mean, it must be like holding a brick. It can't be very nice sometimes. I feel for her.
That's great.
Bless her. So at the time when you thought about that, how did you first start getting involved in it? So you built the confidence up to begin. How did the mission take form?
Totally. So like you were saying, though, a lot of guys don't know how to take care of their skin, and that's fine. That's why I'm here.
Is there a cultural aspect in that as well, though? In that it's, we talk about the modern man. Is there something that feels effeminate around people using products and having a bit better self-care about them? Have you ever found that? I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit there, but it's something we've not been great at. I've only been using proper shampoos and moisturizers and stuff in like the last 4 years, when autumn, not unless it's too late. But is there something culturally around that men just, why don't they tend to have looked after themselves as well, do you think?
I don't think that we make it easy enough. One of the things that I'm working on is a leave-in conditioner for men, because I don't think that men want to spend the time in the shower to put in conditioner and wait 5 minutes and then rinse it out. Right?
You're true. So true.
Right. So if men can wash their hair with the shampoo and body wash, it's a 2-in-1, saves time, and then condition with a little leave-in, good to go.
Straight out and getting after it.
Yeah.
So talking about the decontamination aspect in the skin, sorry, I interrupted you.
No worries. Absolutely. So what happened was I realized that this product was missing. And really I knew that activated charcoal was good for removing toxins, but I wanted to make sure that it was the best thing for removing toxins. So I did research and realized that yes, it truly is. In these types of products, it's the best thing to use. But I wanted to know exactly how it works. I'm not one of those that's going to look and say, okay, what the general public knows is that it absorbs, which means basically it sticks to toxins to remove them. There's chemical and physical absorption, which it can, most of the time it's physically picking it up. It can chemically bind to it though. And that's most of the time what you can find out there. Quick Google search is, how does that activated charcoal work? It absorbs to toxins and removes them.
Okay.
But I wanted to know how that happens. Like, how does it absorb to toxins? What's the process here? So I really dug into the research of activated charcoal and read all kinds of scientific journals and how these activated charcoal companies are using activated charcoal to remove different toxins. Realized or found out through my research that there are different types of activated charcoal.
Okay. And
they're derived from different sources. So you've got activated charcoal derived from coconut shells, from bamboo, from hardwood, from peat, from coal, from all different. I mean, I even read the other day, there's some coming from peanut shells now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but they're all slightly different because they come from these different organic materials. They have different characteristics. And the most notable one for us is the pore size in the activated charcoal.
Okay.
So the reason that that's important is because in order for activated charcoal to remove a toxin, you have to match the pore size in that activated charcoal with the size of the toxin.
So it's a little bit like thinking about a filter. If you were like, I'm going to put a filter in something to stop all this stuff getting through, but if the holes in the filter are too big or too small, it's going to block up or it's not going to be effective. Similar sort of concept to that.
Absolutely. Okay. That is absolutely right. So just as an example, take like coconut activated charcoal has very small pores. It's really good at removing things like color, odor, gases.
Okay.
But that's its wheelhouse, right? You take something like soot, which the size of the toxins in soot range from either 0.1 or 1 micron up to 1,000 microns.
Okay.
A huge difference in size. I mean,
well, you can see that in it as well. Like the very fact you can run your finger along certain substances in like a compartment fire or something like that, and then the residue it leaves on your skin, it's thick and it's almost gritty, and there's so many pieces in it that are huge. Like you say, it's not just like watercolor paper, paint or something like that. It's not as thin. It's not small.
Yep, exactly. There's all different sizes of particles in there. So in order to remove soot in general, you need 3 different types of activated charcoal. One that covers those small toxins, medium, and large, because soot is one of the most known toxins that we have for firefighters. So yeah, just as an example, like that's kind of how activated charcoal works in a nutshell. So finding this out, then I was like, okay, so what are other companies out there? I mean, there are a million different companies out there, not just branded for firefighters, but all over the world, because of the beauty industry now, and it's a trend, marketing this activated charcoal for toxin removal. What are they using? Yeah. What is everybody else using? What are they doing? Like, let's see.
Marketing is like selling snake oil, isn't it? Sometimes, bless them. They'll find something in the middle of nowhere, like you say, coconut or something, and then they'll find a fact about coconuts, like, oh, they were pulled from the trees by the native so-and-sos who lived healthy lives, and then therefore this means charcoal. And you're like, that's nothing to do with it. It's got nothing to do with it. It's probably true, but it's not true. That it's data, but it's not valuable information. It's just, it's just an offshoot. It doesn't actually contribute to the benefits of the product.
That's right. Exactly. And so doing this research, I realized that like most, if not all that I found were using one type of activated charcoal, which means they were removing one size of toxin.
Yeah.
That's not that.
No.
That doesn't work for firefighters. That does not work for firefighters in the way that you guys need it to work. So that's when I knew I had to create an entire line around this, something that works for hair and scalp, but also the body, and is able to remove all sizes of toxins off of the entire body. So that's how the idea was born. And once I discovered the science around it, truly just lit this fire in my soul. Like I've been passionate about it since that day.
Yeah.
I live for it. I wake up every morning just like ready to go for it.
Does it feel a little bit like you're fighting so many cultural trends though? Because I mean, we spoke to guests before, and there is, we've built this ideology in our mind of the soot-covered firefighter, man or woman, as the hard worker, as the hero. And it's not necessarily the sexiest thing in the world for people to think about, cleaning their kit, cleaning down their bodies. And even if they do that, I mean, I used the demonstration of asbestos in the introduction. When we come out for decontamination with a chemical like asbestos, we will spray ourselves down, but simply more than anything is to stop it being airborne. People think, oh, I'm washing it off myself, and you're not at all. It's actually just going to stick the product to your body. And in the same analogy, I imagine you could get in a shower and go, oh, I need to get in the shower because I need to wash the stuff off. But if you get in the shower and use the normal soap that you usually use for whatever, you're doing the right action, but you haven't got the right ingredients. It's all like saying, I'm going to go and make a cake and then just throwing a bunch of flour at the oven and being surprised that the wrong thing comes out of it. It is not going to work in that. So I don't think people are too alien to the concept, but it is upsetting to hear that we've been led astray a little bit and people haven't necessarily given us what we've needed from the very word go.
I agree. I completely agree with you. The other companies who have done this, even that have branded for firefighters, maybe just didn't know.
Yeah.
If you don't continue to ask questions and dig super deep into the research of activated charcoal, of how exactly does this work, you just don't know, because the Google searches are general.
This is kind of like where the bleed over of science and business sort of gets involved, because I love science. I love scientists in general, and what we're talking about here is a lot about trial and error and chemicals and stuff like that, because it's the seeking for truth. You know what I mean? We're looking for what's the next iteration, what's the next version, how do we dive deeper, like you said, into the data to find out. And if that happens to discount or disprove what we previously believed, then the world of science would usually celebrate that as a breakthrough or a success. When businesses get involved, sometimes it can be more difficult to embrace these revelations or embrace these breakthroughs in the technology, or like doing the research like what you've done, because there's money involved and they may have put a lot of money behind a product. Then to learn that it wasn't quite, the intention was right. We're not saying anybody had bad intention. The intention was right, but maybe the data or the research at that point in time just wasn't where it needed to be. But I suppose starting from the ground up, you'd already had that piece of information, but it must have been a scary concept to try and develop a product off the back of it, because developing a product, I've never done it, but I hear it's incredibly complex, incredibly scary, and it's a hell of a journey.
Well, and that's the thing. It absolutely is. And I am not a scientist either. Yeah. I am a woman who came up with this idea and then found the research and did the research. So from that point, I needed the help of a scientist. So I got it.
You know what? That's great though, because you could have I'm sure people have in the past, just jumped off with that data and gone, I've researched this, it sounds pretty valid, I'm just going to go from here. But you put the time and money and trust into working with somebody. So how did that development process begin?
Totally. So I went to a lab who develops these types of products, and they have scientists who develop products like this, who develop hair care products, if you will. And they have an entire team of scientists on their side. It's incredible. It's not cheap. It's incredible though.
Well, yeah, absolutely, unfortunately.
But I was able to work with them and say, okay, this is the science that I found. Is it valid? And they were able to validate that for me. And then over the next year, I worked with them to develop these formulas so that not only is the charcoal in there and the mixture of it correct for firefighters, but also every single other ingredient in these products is meant for the activated charcoal to work. Basically does not stand in the way of the activated charcoal working. It helps to distribute it, and it doesn't block the pores of the activated charcoal, which is so important too.
This reminds me so much of some of the fitness stuff I do, because when you hear supplementation in certain nutritional products, the thing they're talking about, whether it's protein, creatine, something like that, yes, the facts behind that are true, but the way they've delivered it or the way they've processed it actually stops it doing anything in your body remotely beneficial, or you'll only absorb 10% of the benefits because of the way it's been produced or the products that it's been put with. Your body simply can't absorb it, and then ultimately you're just paying to put it down the drain.
Yeah, it's just to waste your money at that point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you think you're doing the right thing, but you're just not. So after you'd gone through that process, I imagine that took a long time. How did you go about testing it? When did you start getting any sort of operational capacity involved?
So throughout the process, as I would get close to what I thought was a good product, because it's really this back and forth between me and the scientist. okay, that, the product is separating too much at this point, or the product is too thin at this point, or the scent isn't right at this point. It's this constant back and forth. Once I would get to a point where I was happy with the product and it was functionally exactly where it should be, I would send samples of it to my brother, who's a firefighter, and then friends who are firefighters to try out themselves and just, hey, give me the feedback. How does this work for you?
Yeah. That must have, how did that feedback go? Because firefighters and operational, they tend to give it blunt. I mean, I'm sure they were trying to be kind, but sometimes they give it honestly, which is what you need.
And that's exactly what I needed, especially at that point, because one of my biggest fears through the whole thing was going through all of this and then launching it to the general public of firefighters, if you will, and then having this is crap.
Yeah, this is crap. It doesn't work, or I don't like it, because...
Thankfully, I did that back and forth and got the blunt feedback and made the adjustments that needed to be made. Because I feel incredibly blessed that when I launched this to the fire community, like, I've gotten amazing feedback. Hopefully it doesn't stop. It's been great having everybody just love it and realize that it's a one-of-a-kind product and that it truly works to get the toxins off, get the odor off, and they just love the products themselves. And I know that we were talking a few minutes ago about it's not the sexiest thing in the world, DECON, right?
That's the problem.
So, so one of the things that I did through the development of this was came up with a scent for the products that everybody loves. So the products smell really good, which makes people just want to use them. I have a lot of people who tell me, I use them every day just because I love the products and I love the way they smell.
Yeah.
So if you can make the products a little sexy, you can make DECON a little sexy,
It's exactly right. It's no different than exercise. Do you know what I mean? And people want to do exercise. They're like, oh, you know what? You just stay at home and do 100 burpees. Yeah, but that's boring and it's hard and it sucks. Or you could go work on a piece of fancy machinery with some music on and watch a video at the same time, and you'd enjoy the experience a bit more. If you can leverage those other senses, like you say, having a great smell alongside it, it is more engaging for the process. I love as well, I was reading on your website about the Firewife Society. I love that aspect of it, and I know within that we represent men and women and all that sort of stuff. So, but it's having that partner's input as well, because even men, women, whoever, we always care about other people more than we tend to care about ourselves. It's one of our really bad characteristics, isn't it? And our loved ones, as is demonstrated by the origin of the company, our loved ones worry about us and they care for us. How much have you found that has been sort of a game changer in connecting with the spouses of these operational personnel, because they're the ones that have to smell them and they're the ones that are going to have to deal with the after effects if they don't look after themselves, in 20, 30 years, if they do pick up some of these horrific diseases.
Totally. And it's funny because a lot of the reviews that I get from firefighters, even on the website, say, I smell better and my wife loves that.
Yep.
So Firewife Society itself is brand new. I just launched Firewife Society, and I'm grateful to through our other business, firemom.com, to have met a ton of firewives, fire girlfriends, who truly care about their firefighters' well-being, and will put their firefighters' well-being before their own, and before their firefighter will put his well-being.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah. So with Firewife Society, also though, these are also women who are giving their all to their firefighter, to their family, who don't take as much self-care, not even days, but just a little self-care. Don't think of themselves and do things for themselves.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of combine this self-care aspect for the firewife with the DECON products that their firefighter needs that he may not be going out there to get himself.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done, and done it in a way that there are a ton of different companies out there that do everything that say, every shirt they do and every mug they do say Firewife across it.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of that out there. which is great. So I took a different angle.
See where everybody else is going and go in the other direction. That's really good advice usually.
Yeah, right. Thank you. So I created something that that'll just be more self-care, more FabFitFun type for them, if you will,
yeah.
to bring other brands into it. But
yeah.
but also in that aspect, then pulling in other fire and firewife businesses into that. Like for June, which will be our 4th of July theme, I'm working with a firewife who makes bracelets. Okay. She makes these really cute bracelets that can be customizable. So I'm having a really cute one done that'll go in the box with this patriotic theme. Oh. So it's not necessarily everything that says firewife across it, but we're roping in firewife businesses and continuing to keep the community involved.
That's huge, because I think when firefighters finish their operational duties as well, they forget sometimes that no matter what they do at work, they're still going to bring some parts of it home, whether that's mentally, whether that's physically. And when we think about decontamination, it's on all of their clothes and, like you say, their body and stuff when they enter back into the house. How much of an awareness do you think firefighters partners have of that, and sort of empowering them with the products and the knowledge to look after their family as well? Because obviously their partner's going to come home and hug their children and have this all over them. That's where, whilst we may not look after ourselves very much, we have to think a little bit wider and the effect that this is having on our family and our children and the other people that we interact with.
Yeah, I think that there's kind of a 50-50 split of wives who are really educated about it and wives who have no idea. Just because of the nature of the job, we all know that firefighters tend to end up with women in the medical field. So I think those women are very aware of these toxins that their firefighters are bringing home. Yeah. And I'm sure, women in other fields who are, checking in on these things, or whose firefighters are letting them know, are aware as well. But I think there's probably, just to take a stab in the dark, probably at least 50% that just have no idea. No. And they have little kids at home, and their firefighters could possibly be volunteer firefighters who are bringing their gear home to wash with the family laundry. Hopefully that's not still happening, but somewhere it is.
No, it was. Yeah, I was still doing it probably 5 years ago, before I started getting a bit more educated on it. I was volunteer and or retained or on call, as we call it in the UK, for probably 10 years. And I was not remotely educated about it when I first started. And because the calls were few and far between, I would come home, having done the hard jobs, getting involved in the soot and the sweaty part of the work, come home stinking and just put your bunker gear, put your kit straight in the washing machine with your children's bedding and stuff like that. And it's not worth thinking about, but looking back, if we'd have known better, we'd have done better. And we're at that point now where we're empowered with the knowledge, and we need to make these better decisions.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And you're right. You can't look back and regret what you've done in the past, but moving forward so that people maybe who don't know better can listen to them and do better in the future. One of the big things that weighs on my heart is my brother and I lost our dad when I was 25 and he was 21. So about 15 years ago now. Our dad just dropped dead of a heart attack. And
sorry to say that.
Now my brother has an almost year-old son. And the thought of cancer taking him, because the odds of this job are so high of that, I can't stand the thought of it. No. We have to do better.
So getting that exposure for it and stuff like that is what's key. I was looking at some of the bits and bobs that you have on the website, and what I loved was the individual sachets as well, because that's the sort of thing. We do that many covers at different stations and stuff like that. Being able to have one or two of them in your kit bag and carrying around with you I thought was just a fantastic idea.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I wanted to do too, was I have those so that I can send a bunch of them out to a live burn at a fire training, right? And all those guys can properly DECON and get to know the product that way. And then I have the 12 packs of them so that firefighters can buy a 12 pack and, just like you said, throw it in their kit, or stations can buy multiple 12 packs and have them on hand for after fire. So each guy gets one. And that's more cost effective for stations to be able to do it that way. However, one thing to note in that is that a lot of stations are looking at doing this just after a fire. Post-fire, post-scene decontamination is where they're looking to spend their money on this.
Okay.
But in studies have shown that there are so many of those carcinogens brought back into the station and found in areas like kitchens and sleeping rooms too, that if your station's not going to pay for it, I recommend you have some on hand so that when you're on shift, you're using the right products to get the carcinogens off.
That's where that personal accountability bit comes in so strong, because your station may step in to help you decontaminate the kit or wipe your face off, or, you know, help you get a fresh set of fire kit, bunker gear. But you're still carrying so much of that because, you know, as soon as you come out of breathing apparatus, it's all in your hair, it's all over your skin. These are the biggest parts, you know, around the edge of our face that are going to build up those seals. And then as soon as we've taken off and as soon as we've washed down the rest of the kit, we're going to go upstairs, we're going to have something to eat, we're going to have something to drink because we've been working hard. And it's still in and around everywhere that's all over us. Absolutely.
And people don't realize that it goes right through your bunker gear when you're fighting fire too. It's all over your body as much as it's not as much underneath your gear. It's still there, and it's still plenty enough to soak into your skin and cause cancer.
It's a real worry. So I wanted to make sure that people had all the right information to find out a little bit more about you. So when they head over to the website, what's the best sort of bits to empower people with the knowledge, to find out if they need to know a little bit more? Where's the best places to look and reach you?
Absolutely. So our website is flamedecon.com, and then we have a tab, our What We Do tab, kind of breaks down the science of what I was talking about earlier. And then you can find us. We're on 2 social media platforms, on Facebook and Instagram. They're both at FlameDecon. I'm most active on Instagram, though. So if you have an Instagram, head over there. Feel free to hit me up if you have questions. Shoot me an email at tara@flamedecon.com. Always available, always looking to interact. So
I love it. So when we're talking there about habits and behaviors and stuff like that, a lot of this is in and around developing someone as a professional, but also sort of as a person. So I wanted to ask you personally, when it comes to personal development or healthy habits, what are some of the big things you would advise for people, or what's some of the biggest changes you've found benefit from yourself in terms of your own habits and behaviors?
A hard one. I know you're probably telling me.
It's okay. Take your time.
You know, one of my biggest things that I'm focusing on right now is, in line with all of this, is yes, I have my gallon bottle of water that I drink from daily. Right now I'm drinking out of my small one because it's difficult to block the whole screen with the gallon. But also just that it's all over physical wellness. Like I said, my dad dropped out of a heart attack when he was 51.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
No.
I don't want to go to sleep at night afraid I'm not going to wake up in the morning because I'm not well. So I am focusing on my wellness right now and making sure that I'm drinking enough water, that I'm getting in my workouts, and eating the right foods. I mean,
it's those small things that make the big difference, I suppose, long term, isn't it? Because the data that we all look at in terms of terminal illness and stuff like that are usually the big things. But so often the big things is just a collection of small habits and behaviors. You know, getting hit by a car or, you know, having a really tragic accident, by comparison, are far few than the long-term detrimental effects of not taking care of your body, not taking care of your mind, you know, not hydrating, not cleansing your body of all these damaging toxins, whether that's in the job that you do, in the food that you eat. it's those small things. So that's something you focused on.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep. And it's just little changes every day to be a better person, to make myself a more well person. I actually have a traumatic brain injury because I was in a car accident and had a basketball hit my head into a wall it was 5 years ago now. Yeah, so I have to take medication every day to control the production of cerebral spinal fluid in my brain.
Wow.
Yeah, so things like hydration and wellness are important for not just my overall health, but for my brain as well.
Having a setback like that, for somebody that's clearly very active, must have been challenging to bring yourself back from. And some of the things we're talking about here is people developing an illness or developing a life-limiting condition. How did you come back from that setback, and how did you sort of motivate yourself or find purpose in what was now going to be a limiting thing? Like you say, you have to take daily medication. So how did you reintegrate with getting out there and reliving your life again? It's
all about focusing on your goals and truly that motivation of, I'm going to do this. Because there were, before I ended up in the hospital and they did the spinal tap and all of that, I ended up taking more ibuprofen than probably anybody ever, just to be able to function and focus on what was in front of me every day. But was still focusing and functioning the best I could. And after that, I had severe headaches for a long time, and then was put on different medications that would cause pretty bad brain fog and feeling like you couldn't function at your best. Mentally, cognitively was awful and scary, and especially when you're put in professional environments where you need to be able to function in that way, feels like a setback. But at the same time, you put your mind to it that you're going to do it. And granted, mine wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. I had horrid headaches. I still have times that, basic words slip my mind. I have horrid memory problems. I keep, everything that I have to do is on this calendar. Everything.
We have 5 or 6 calendars that all integrate, from all the other businesses, from our children, from horses to my fitness training, to my shifts, to my wife's shifts. It is such a busy calendar. I always say to people, don't rely on your memory. It's not a competition. You are human. You will forget things. But also, I always think there's a big aspect of empowering yourself to be present. Now, I know I'm an addict, so my mind can go 1,000 different places at once if I don't try and help it stay focused and stay in control of what it's trying to do. That's why I make notes. It stops me wandering off mentally, and it allows me to be present. And I think that's one of the biggest blockers in people's productivity, is the fact that they can't be present and focus on just one thing, because we live in such a distracting world now. So you feel being organized, setting those goals, and even though you've had that setback, setting the game up, whether that be through correct hydration, support through trial and medication, that empowered you to become more focused. And it's clearly working. You've been able to make wonderful progress with 2 businesses despite that setback.
Well, thank you. And that's exactly it. It's putting your mind to it, taking care of your mind and your body, and just not giving up. Making powerful. Sure that you're organized and know what your mission and your plan is, and make a plan, but don't be married to it, because as we know, that plan's going to fall apart.
I always talk to people about the old strategy versus tactics. You know what I mean? And it's a little bit like what you said with the original business and the way you've sort of integrated the two. You can have a set goal, but your method or your journey towards achieving it can be very flexible. The strategy can be like a 6-lane highway, but the tactics are, which lane are we in? Sometimes we need to go fast, sometimes we need to go slow, sometimes we might need to stop for a minute, we might need to rethink the direction that we're going in. But as long as we are still making tangible progress, we're not busy going in figure eights. We want to be productive, and whether it's fast or whether it's slow, we're making systematic steps through staying organized, through looking after ourselves, through thinking ahead and setting goals, that we can make that tangible progress.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, it's interesting because right now, even in the business, I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, so over the next week, what am I doing as far as like my social media goes and getting out there and interacting with people? I don't have a whole lot on my calendar over the next week, but over the next week, I also need to ship the next Jobtown boxes, ship the next Firewife Society boxes, ship out our International Firefighters Day mailers. I've got a lot of these tactical things to do over the next week. And then I have an entire marketing plan that I'm executing for the following month after that. So it's knowing what times to, when the time to prep and when the time to do those tactical things are, and when the time to do the marketing and do all the interaction and all of that stuff.
I totally agree with you, because you can create the best product in the world, but if you don't communicate it, nobody's going to know anything about it. I think about this on the podcast all the time, because I must have the best part of 12 episodes sitting on one of my hard drives waiting to be edited, but I'm constantly, I just love people. I love interacting with people. I love our conversation. I'm so grateful that you got up early to have this and, share some valuable information with emergency services operators all over the world. But it's knowing that don't get too obsessed with one task. You need to be able to change the hats. And even sometimes, sitting and editing audio is not the most exciting thing to do with your downtime, especially when half the time you're hearing your own voice. It's not the most stimulating. You're constantly going, God, I sound terrible. So it's not the most stimulating thing, but it all helps move you forwards. Otherwise, this is where the whole procrastination of perfection comes from, because people can stay inside their comfort zone and keep working on one thing, but then neglect everything else, and the whole thing's not going to move forward together.
So true. Yep, that's so true. And it's just like you're talking about from a business standpoint, but then also a personal standpoint. Like, you have to know when it's time to go all out and give it your all business-wise, and when you need that time for self-care and to step back. And that is a struggle that I'm dealing with right now, because for the last 2.5 years, I have been on 7 days a week from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, business-wise. And now that I'm getting busier, it's a blessing, and I'm so excited, and I absolutely love every minute, but it's also like, okay, I need to breathe. Like, somebody, there's every once in a while, it's like, okay, everybody leave me alone. And I don't like that feeling. So it's finding that balance. And I think that we all have to find that balance, and I'm okay with admitting that I'm struggling with that right now.
It's so important to get that. You can't pour from an empty cup. That's what I always say to people. You've got to fill up your cup first in the morning. You've got to learn that being selfish, we vilify the word selfish. Being selfish is actually a healthy thing. I mean, even if we echo back to the products that you create, taking that 10 minutes at the end of an incident to say, hey, I need to go and wash myself down. I just need to go and decon myself to make sure I'm looking after myself. Now, for everybody else, it may feel like you're not helping them out. When you take your alone time, when you take your own personal time, even just to sit quietly or read a book or have a drink or go for a walk, or if you've got a hobby or a dog or something like that, that may seem selfish to other people, but you can't set yourself on fire just to keep everybody else warm,
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, you are going to burn out. Absolutely.
I recently watched this Instagram live with a friend of mine her name's Shannon Wallace, and Adventures of a Wallace. And she did this demonstration of pouring from an empty cup, basically, and why you need to fill your cup first. And, basically she showed, pouring back and forth from different cups and how you're going to run out. But then she took the 4 cups down below and put them all next to each other and stacked one up above, and was like, okay, this one on top is your cup. Now, if you fill yours full, it's going to overflow into all the rest of them. And I thought that was such an amazing analogy, because it's so true. As long as you're filling your cup completely full and 100%. You're fulfilled and good, you're going to have that energy, and you're going to have what it takes to fill everybody else's cup.
And we hear that as well. When you say, I mean, like having this conversation with you today and people say, oh, Cara was brimming, these words that we brimming with energy or bursting, or they just exuded positivity because, like you've just said there, it's spilling out of them. It's that cup analogy that they've filled it. And I spend hours, 2 or 3 hours a day, listening to audiobooks while I'm working away and constantly working on that personal development, trying to have that self-reflection. I get up crazy early, and I always make sure the first thing I do in the day is I prioritize me. But the only way to do that, people say, oh, you can't do that, Pete, you've got children and stuff like that. Right, well, if it's really important to you, you'll get up before your children rely upon you. So I've been and I'll do my workout, I'll listen to 40 minutes of an audiobook while I'm doing it, I'll get in the ice bath, and I will be sat in the kitchen before my children are even out of bed. Do you know what I mean? And they'll come down, and I can be present with them. I can give them that attention. Not I'm just in the house with them at the same time. I'm present with them. I'm going to give them eye contact. I'm going to ask them how they slept. I'm going to have a little cuddle. We might look at my daughter's book before she goes to school. I'm not a perfect parent, and I never will be. I don't think there is such a thing. But I know that it's not quantity, it's that quality. I can be present with them. I'm not there looking at my phone. I'm not there thinking about all the tasks that I've got to do for that day. I've already filled up my cup first, and it's so important. And when I hear about mums, and not just mums, but they tend to be typically bad for it, just constantly trying to pour into everybody else and leaving themselves without emotional, financial, physical health and wellness, it worries me. And we need to turn the tide on this word selfish. We need to celebrate it sometimes, I think, and encourage it a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, turning that corner into self-care. Self-care is not selfish. Yeah, I totally agree.
Totally. And you got to practice what you preach. If you expect your children or your colleagues to do something that you feel is in their best interest, then you've got to go first. I've got it tattooed on one of my hands. It says, be the difference, on the back of my thumb. And
That's
I say,
awesome.
Be the difference you want to see in somebody else. If you want them to be more empathetic, be more empathetic yourself. If you want them to look after themselves, show them what it looks like. Show them what it looks like to stay well hydrated. Show them what it looks like not to abuse substances or alcohol or anything like that. Lead by example. Practice what you preach.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just talk the talk. You've got to walk the walk as well. So, I mean,
That's
we've
right.
spoken about so many aspects of personal development there, and your friend obviously touches on these sorts of things. Has there been a book or a documentary or a resource that, whether it's to do with the business that you developed or you personally have found benefit in, that you think the listeners would benefit from?
So my favorite book of all time is not a wellness self-development book, but a financial self-development book. And it's like the oldest self-development financial book ever, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If somebody has not read that, go do it right now.
I love it. Robert Kiyosaki, isn't it?
Yep, Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, love him. It's a
Rich
fantastic
Dad,
book.
Poor Dad, and just he knowing the difference between an asset and a liability is huge. In just looking at your daily life and how you are approaching things and making decisions, and then knowing when the time to take a risk is, and when it's not, but knowing that that things take risk.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to risk things, risk versus reward.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my favorite book. It truly changed my life.
Love it. And finally, before we close, if you had a giant billboard in the sky, then you could display a message for a moment in time for the rest of the world to see, something during this incredibly confusing and scary time for people. What's one message that you think people would hear right now?
Oh gosh.
That's a big one. Hit me with the mic drop. Take your time.
Huge.
Take your time. Have a think. If there was one.
This is hard. I am a controversial person when it comes to the state of the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
I look at things from a different point of view.
I can see your brain ticking. I love it.
Yeah. I think it would be along the lines of basically step back and take a look at things in the world for yourself and as they are. Look at the facts Don't listen to what the media and what everybody else is telling you. You know what's right. You know what your gut is telling you.
I always say to people, think about personal data.
People.
Yeah, personal data versus the dogma is what I always try and say to people.
Right.
What are you feeling? What are you seeing? What makes sense to you? Not what is the dogma saying, not what is the rest of the world saying. What feels logical? What feels right? You know, what fills your personal cup up? What feels important to you? And don't necessarily go with the crowd like you've done with your product, and you're seeing the success of it. You've looked a little bit deeper. What actually makes sense to me? What actually rings true in terms of what am I trying to achieve with my life, or how do I want to be remembered? That's a very personal thing, and it is personal to everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. And thank you. I think it's really important these days, this day and age, to step back and take a look at things as they really are. I don't think many people are doing that. I don't think enough people are doing that. And we, in turn, the sacrifice for that is that we're not taking care of each other.
No. That's it. They can do things that they would never do to their own family or their own friends. And you think, God, where's your passion? Where's your empathy? Where's your sympathy? Where's your humanity?
Totally. Yeah.
Scary. Anyway, Cara, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I know it's super crazy early over there, but clearly the hardest worker in the room. So I love that. Thank you so much for taking time. And I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you so much, Pete. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to talking to you again soon, too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey folks, that was my chat with Tara, founder, CEO of Flame. In today's episode was such a lovely example of how our wider fire service family always wants to get involved and find a way to support us, to find a way to keep us safe, not just in the short term when we're heading out on the job, but also long term. Like I said in the introduction, the carcinogens are unavoidable in the area of work that we do, and cancer in the fire service is becoming a really scary hazard of our occupation that if we're not careful will become an expectation of operational personnel on the front line. Only if we're able to take full accountability, take the actions that need doing, not waiting for people to take those actions for us. We've been made aware of the dangers, we've been given solutions, whether it's Flame or another company out there. Take action today. You already have a similar product in your home, but if it's not keeping you safe, if it's not specific to you, if it's not supporting you as an emergency services responder, then it is up to you to take the action, invest the time, invest the money, and look after yourself. Not just now, but for years to come. Thanks for coming back to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Be sure to jump off and have a look around at the other episodes. Subscribe, sign up, jump on the email newsletter. Be sure you hear first when the next episode drops. And we're also giving all kinds of discounts on the emails as well. Companies such as Flame, DECON, and others that we've had on the podcast before. That's the place to get that information. It doesn't exist anywhere else. It's not on the internet. It comes straight through the Firefighters Podcast emails. So keep yourself up to date. Keep your finger on the pulse. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay hungry. And thank you so much for coming back. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be with us. I can't wait for the next one to roll around. I can't wait to hear the feedback from today's episode. We've got some absolutely incredible guests coming up, so I look forward to sharing them with you real soon, right here on the Firefighters Podcast.